Hi ladies, how are you? So I'm back finally to do my labour and delivery story of my twins Audrey and Max. If you watched my previous video, my 2-month postpartum, you would have seen Audrey and Max. I would have introduced you to them finally. Sorry it took so long. If you have a baby or know about reflux, you know how stressful and busy and overwhelming it can be for a mama with a baby with reflux, and my little Max has reflux, so he cries a lot and he wants to be held a lot, and there just hasn't been significant time to do a video, but they're napping now, so I've taken this opportunity to come and do my labour and delivery of my beautiful little twins. So if you watched my 36-week pregnancy vlog, I would have mentioned that I was going in for a C-section on the 10th of April. Unfortunately, it didn't go as smoothly as that. I got admitted to the hospital on the 8th of April as I was having 2 days worth of injections for steroids to help speed their lung process along, just in case. I was 36 weeks and something days then, and at that time it was all still go ahead for my C-section on the 10th, which was the Friday. So I got to hospital, I got admitted. I love this hospital. It's one of the best hospitals in Gippsland. The nurses and the doctors are just amazing there. The midwives are fantastic, and yeah, I felt right at home, very comfortable, immediately relaxed, all that sort of stuff. So I got admitted, I got into my pajamas, and I just unpacked a bit, and just, you know, the usual things you do when you get into hospital. And not long after I got there, they gave me my first injection of the steroids, and we did to check the heartbeats. I keep forgetting what they're called, CTGs, I think, on the babies, to monitor them, check their heartbeats, and see if I was having contractions, which I were, but at the time I thought they were just Braxton Hicks. They were on and off, they weren't too bad, so I didn't think anything of it, and they were fine. They weren't too concerned about it at the time. My blood pressure was okay at the time, a little bit high, but not too bad. And yeah, everything was fine. So that day went really well. Thursday came around, I was having the monitors checking their heart rates multiple times a day. Thursdays, Max's heartbeat was really fast, and then went really slow. They were a bit concerned, but not too badly at the moment. They just thought it was peaking and that sort of stuff. And again, my blood pressure was up and down all throughout the day, and I was starting to feel really swollen and hot and itchy. They brought a fan in for me Thursday in the hospital ward, because where I was surrounded by windows. I was in the corner of the room, and there's 2 beds in the room, so I was sharing with another mum with her newborn baby. And yeah, so I was near all the windows, and it was quite warm. So I was hot anyway, and now the sun was on me all the time, so I was very hot. So I brought a fan in for me as well. And I was just starting to get really itchy, and I started to get a bit of a rash, and they kept checking my blood pressure, and again, it was just up and down, but not too high. And I did a urine sample, and I found a bit of protein in my urine, but protein's been in my urine throughout the pregnancy, on and off. So they didn't seem too concerned again. Again, I did on the monitor, checking the heart rates, and they were fine. They keep waiting for the, you know, for them to go up and for down to relax, and then that sort of thing. And they were doing that. They were moving, and then that evening, they told me the horrible news that my C-section for Friday has been cancelled, which came to a huge shock, because no one told me throughout the whole day, yet they knew the whole day, my OB knew, that the nursery was full. In this country hospital, they only have enough for 2 sets of twins, and I think 2 singles or something like that. and there was already 2 sets of twins in the nursery. One was born at 30 weeks and one was born at 33 weeks, but the 33-week set has been in there for a few weeks now. So my wonderful midwife, who I became really close to throughout my pregnancy, Lauren, she was going to do everything she can to see if the 33-week twins, who weren't 33 weeks, they were just born at 33 weeks, so like 36, 38 weeks or something like that, can either go home or be moved into the room with their mum, so there was room for my twins. So this became very stressful to me. They even talked about transferring me to a different hospital, which I did not want to do because this is the hospital I gave birth to my daughter at. And I was just really comfortable there. I love the midwives. I love the OBs. And it's not too far for my family to travel to come visit me. So once again, I was like really stressing out a little bit. Friday came around. I felt very emotional because that morning I should be going in for a C-section and I wasn't. They checked my blood pressure that morning. It was really high. I can't remember the numbers. I should have wrote these down because once again I'm winging it like I do most of my videos, but I should have wrote this down. But my blood pressure was really, really high, like scary high. And the rash got worse. My stomach, my bump was completely red. My chest was red. My arms was red. My neck was red. And they were starting to worry that I might have preeclampsia or hypertension, something like that. So I did a round of blood tests, and I had to wait for that day to get the backline of that day. So throughout the day I had constant monitoring on my bump, and I was having contractions. Some went up into the 80s, the 100s, and even though I was feeling them, they were annoying, but they weren't like overly painful. And the midwife was like, aren't you feeling these? These are like really intense contractions. I was like, yeah, but I can handle it. It's okay. I'm just breathing through them. No one even considered checking my cervix or anything. They just left me. They just thought they were Braxton Hicks, or because of the blood pressure, I was having contractions. Once again, max heart rate, it dropped quite low, and then it went super duper high, and which was scary. He was definitely getting stressed more than Audrey. Max was twin 2, Audrey was twin 1. So both heartbeats were okay, but I was on the monitor for a lot longer on Friday. Throughout the whole day, my blood pressure was high. Again, my midwife, Lauren, she was working her hardest to keep me not only at that hospital, not to get transferred, but also to push the C-section. They came in that afternoon and said, look, we might be able to get you in to have the C-section tomorrow because we are not liking these results with the monitor. We are not liking these blood pressure results. I do think you might have preeclampsia. We're just waiting for the blood test to come back. So at this point, my husband and my kids were at home. I didn't want them coming backwards and forwards. They were coming in to visit me, but I said, no, just stay there just in case I'll be going in, just in case I'm having my C-section tomorrow. And that was hard, especially because I was on my own and my husband was very sick because he was at home looking after the kids and he couldn't just come in to be with me. But I was constantly updating him and sending him pictures of my huge red bump. And then they came back with the results of the blood test that evening or later that afternoon, and they said, going over the blood test results, I do think you definitely have preeclampsia. We're going to push forward with this C-section. We've moved the twins, the older set of twins, out of the nursery, so there's space for your twins. So we're definitely doing the C-section tomorrow because I think it's too dangerous to transfer me and it's too dangerous to leave it any longer. So the C-section was booked in for 11 a.m. that Saturday morning, the 11th of April. And it was a really rough night. I was super hot all night. I was itchy all night. My blood pressure was up and down, but staying high. Like, it wasn't going to a safe level. Midwives was really worried. Sometimes during the night, they were thinking, you know, is this going to turn into emergency C-section during the night? If your blood pressure is going to peak really high again, we're going to have to like rush you in or something because this is getting dangerous. I had high levels of protein in my urine as well. And even during the night, I had the monitors, the heart rate monitors on the twins, just to keep monitoring them, so to see that they're not stressed. Max again was up and down his stress levels, so I didn't sleep that night. It was such a stressful night. I was so worried about the babies, and I just couldn't wait to get the C-section going. I had my 2 doses of steroids, and they think everything was going to be fine. I also had a ultrasound that Friday just to check if Audrey, twin 1, was still breech, which she was. So there was no chance of having a vaginal delivery. Unfortunately, it was definitely going to be a C-section. So Saturday morning came around. They brought in on Friday, I forgot to mention, the anaesthesiast came around on Friday to talk me through what the C-section was going to be about, about the spinal and how that works, all that sort of stuff, because I've never had C-section before. So that was scary, because they go through all the risks and all the dangers and what could go wrong and that sort of stuff. And for someone who never had a C-section before, that was scary. So Saturday morning came around, and they came in early morning again, checked my blood pressure. It was high, but not dangerously high. They gave me injection to stop blood clots, and they put those horrible tights or socks, what do you want to call them, the ones that go right up your calf, on my legs, and they gave me a gown to put on. This was like something 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I've had breakfast very, very, very early, so it was enough hours before the C-section, and it was just a very small little light breakfast. And then my husband turned up, and once again the midwives came around and mentioned what was going to happen, the process, and all that sort of stuff. So near 11 o'clock they came around and got me, and I walked around to the elevator. We went up to the next level. We went to labour and delivery, surgery, that sort of place. And then they stopped us and saying, because there was another woman who's going to have a C-section, and they didn't know if they were going to do her first or me first. And thankfully I was already there and prepped, and so they said, no, we're doing Beverly first, bring her through. So I went into a little room first, and the anaesthesiast, he was there with me, and he was doing the IVs, and they gave me this horrible drink to stop stomach acid from coming up. And so that was a horrible tasty drink, and I was gagging with that. And they said, if you throw it up, you're gonna have to drink it again. So I did everything I can to keep it down, because I did not want to drink it again. And so they set me up and they prepped me, and once again they started going through the process of the steps that they're going to do. And then I walked into the actual theatre, and I sat on the edge of the bed. And if you had a C-section before, you know the process. And I put my feet on this little stand, and you grip the kind of this weird stand, and it's like a pad, like a cushion thing, and then you grip it and you arch over for the anaesthetist to put the spinal in. And they numbed the area with a bit of anaesthetic, and then he said, now this is when you're going to have to sit really, really still. I'm about to do the spinal. So he wet the area with the stuff, and he said that I'm about to do the spinal, sit very still. So he did the spinal. I didn't feel a thing, which was very painless. And then he said, I've never had anyone not even flinch. You sat amazingly still. And I was too scared to even flinch. And thankfully I didn't feel anything. So it was very painless. So then I laid back down, and they put the curtain up, and I had the mask on my face for air for the babies. And my husband came in, and he sat, the C-sections I've seen, the husband sits right next to the wife. My husband was behind me. I couldn't even see him, and we were holding hands, but my arm was cranked right back. So it was very awkward. It wasn't like anything I've seen on TV or anything like that. But he was there, and then they started the C-section. I didn't even know they were cutting me, because I said, is it happening already? And they said, yeah, we're already doing it. And I didn't know. So at least I knew the spinal was working. And then very quickly they started, and then before I even know it, Audrey was born. And I had my OB, and I had my two OBs that was with me through my whole pregnancy. One was from the very beginning when I was TTCing, and when I first found out I was pregnant, all the way up to the end, and then my OB who was my specialist OB. I had both of them there, which was very special and wonderful that they both could have been there. And they both delivered my twins. Audrey was born first, and then I started crying as soon as they lifted her out, and she was there, and she was crying straight away, which is a really good sign. And my husband was crying. All three of us were crying. And they quickly whisked her off to the pediatricians and all the specialists that was over at the side, just to make sure she was fine, check her blood sugars and everything, because I had diabetes. And then not even, a few minutes later, Max was born, and he came out, and they lifted up like they do with Audrey and showed us. And again, I was crying, and he was crying. Little Max let out a little scream, and it was just so surreal. Like, the whole thing still felt surreal, like the pregnancy. Like, I couldn't believe my babies were here. Like, even before the C-section started, I was thinking, I can't believe they're going to pull babies out of me. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but it just felt so surreal because you've been waiting for that moment for so long. And anyone who's been TTC for a few years, and then you finally have that baby, and you having that baby, it does not feel real. It's surreal. And it's just a magical moment, and I can't even describe it. It's just amazing. And so they were over on the side, checking all their stuff, and then they were stitching me up and everything. And my husband got to hold them straight away. They're both doing really well. They didn't need any helping with breathing or anything like that. Audrey's blood sugars were a bit low, so it was just a quick hold with my husband, and they showed me, and I gave them a little kiss each, and then they took them up to the nursery to give them the colostrum that I've been expressing since 28 weeks, and to give their first feeds to help their blood sugar straight away. So my husband went with the babies, and I stayed in recovery, and they were giving me some more injections and pain injections to help with the pain and all that sort of stuff. And I was shaking really bad, which is the come down from the spinal. And I was down there for a little while, and then they brought me back up to the room, and that's when the scary stuff started. My uterus wasn't contracting at all. It was doing nothing, so my bleeding was extremely heavy. I had doctors around me. I had my OBs around me. I had, I think, 4 or 5 midwives around me, constantly changing the bed pads and the pads in me, and they go, the blood just won't slow down. And I had no colour in my face. They were getting ready to give me a blood transfusion. Like, they were setting the blood up because it was getting that bad. And my midwife, Lauren, my wonderful friend, was there, and she said, I don't want to scare you, Bev, but this is getting to the point, if this does not slow down soon, if your uterus doesn't start contracting, you're going to have to go in and have an emergency hysterectomy because it's getting dangerous. And I lost a lot of blood in theatre, and now I'm losing too much blood in recovery. So it was very scary for a long time there. And then they were pushing on my uterus, trying to wake it up or something. My OB called it a stretched out lazy uterus, basically, because I've had such big babies. I had a set of twins first, and I had 2 babies, a 10-pound and a 12-pound, and then another set of twins. My uterus was so stretched out, and because I had a C-section instead of a vaginal birth, it didn't have to do anything. So my OB described it like it's just laying back. It's going why do I have to contract? I didn't do anything. I just carried babies, and now you took the babies. I don't have to do anything, so I'm just laying back and not doing anything. So thankfully, after it seemed like the longest time, I don't even know how long it was, maybe half an hour after the severe bleeding started, my uterus started contracting and the blood started to slow down. So they held off on the transfusion, and I didn't have to go in for emergency surgery, which I was grateful for, obviously. But obviously, if they needed to take the uterus, I don't care. My family's complete. So if it came to the point where they said, oh, we need to take it, it's fine. So yeah, and then finally the bleeding started to slow down, and they were giving me more painful injections and all that sort of stuff. And then that evening I got to they brought the babies in. Once everything kind of settled down and I was starting to recover okay, they just brought the babies in quickly just for me to give them a little cuddle and a kiss, and then they took them back to the nursery. They weren't in the NICU or anything like that, they were just in the nursery. And then I just got some sleep, and then the next day, late in the afternoon, they took the catheter out and all that sort of stuff, and talking about getting up and moving, which at the time, when they tell you, like, we're going to get you up and we're going to start you walking, it was like, are you kidding me? To, like, you know, because you're so much pain, and it's like, there's no way I can get up and walk or get up. And I think when they did eventually get me up just to walk to the bathroom, because you got no choice, I haven't got a catheter anymore, it took me at least a good 40 minutes, and I am not ashamed to admit I cried the whole 40 minutes trying to get up. Just to sit on the edge of the bed was pure agony. The pain is undescribable. If you had a C-section, you would know what it's like. It's just undescribable, and to stand is the most agonizing thing you can do. And I'm like shuffling, like doing tiny little shuffle steps to the toilet, and then just to sit up and down on the toilet, it took me the longest time, and it was the most agonizing thing ever. But it is true, once you start getting up and moving, you do start to feel better. But the day after I got up the first time, I did start feeling better, and I was moving a bit easier. I still couldn't lay on my side though. I slept sitting up on my back, which was very uncomfortable. I had the numbest bum for the longest time. And the twins, on the other hand, though, they were doing fantastic. I was exclusively breastfeeding at that point. They only had top-up bottles every now and then just to help the blood sugars, and that was it. I started breastfeeding, and it came pretty easily with the twins, thankfully. This time around, I had trouble breastfeeding my other children, but Max was a really good latcher, and he brought my milk in pretty quickly. And so, yeah, so around Tuesday, they came into my room permanently. They weren't in the nursery anymore. They were putting weight on. Their blood sugars were stable. They were perfectly fine. They passed all their tests. So they were permanently in my room Tuesday. And then they said I could go home that Wednesday, which was like super surprised, because I didn't expect to go home so soon, because they were saying, oh, you're probably in for a week or two after having the C-section with the twins, depending on their health and everything. But because the twins were past everything and they're thriving, and I was healing very well, they said, oh, you can go home Wednesday. So they did a final check Tuesday night and Wednesday morning on me and the twins, and everything was fine. So I was able to go home that Wednesday, even though I was still very sore. I was able to go home. So yeah, so that basically sums up my labour and delivery. I tried to spit it in because, like, the video is now only 25 minutes long, so I may have to cut this into parts. If not, I hope you enjoyed hearing about the labour and delivery of my twins. Feel free to ask me any questions, and if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, which the links are below, you will see many photos of Audrey and Max by now. And yeah, feel free to ask me questions either on Facebook or below. And thank you for listening, and I shall talk to you all again soon. Bye.